everybody. It's super late. I should be sleeping, but instead of sleeping, we're going to talk about a horrible, horrible set known as Fallen Empires, released on the 15th of November of 1994, containing 102 cards, 35 commons, 31 uncommons, and 36 rares. It's not considered to be part of any block because it's not good enough to be part of any block. Its expansion symbol is a crown to symbolize the concept of an empire. It's the last set to use the T-tap symbol. After this, it becomes the arrow, that becomes another arrow, that becomes another arrow. A card pack. So this was the first set that they introduced multiple card arts on commons. Too many card arts. It's the first set to be considered to really be a flop for Wizards. Cards were available from mid-November of 1984 to sometime in 1998. You can still find Fallen Empire sold online for super cheap. Like, it's just not worth buying. The print run was announced by Wizards to be between 35 and 350 to 375 million cards. The failure of Fallen Empires to sell on time, plus the additional expense of warehousing the unsold product, cost Wizards of the Coast considerable expense, particularly when it is considered that Revise, which was in short supply, had been scaled back to accommodate the orders for Fallen Empires. So, after the Brothers' War on Dominaria, continent of Sarpeda, the Ice Age is approaching. The climate change results in dwindling resources and fighting amongst allies for survivals. So, as bad as Fallen Empires is, thematically, I actually think it's a very cool set. Basically because it featured colors instead of fighting each other, fighting within themselves. White featured the Order of Libitar, fighting the Feralites, which were some zealots. Blue featured the merfolks fighting the Homarids. Black featured the Order of the Ebon Hand fighting the Thralls. Red, dwarfs versus goblins. And then elves versus zealots for green. And it had a lot of different types of tokens, which actually after this Wizards was like, hey guys, chill out on the tokens. +1, +1, -1, -1 for counters. That's it. Some notable cards. There's only really a few, so we'll talk about those. The cycles are the artifact boons, the sack lands, and the storage lands. None of those are particularly good. Misprints. Oh yeah, really the biggest misprint is that at this point Wizards was using a printer that was also printing another card game called Werven. Werven is a horrible card game. I attempted to play it back in the day. And somehow the cards, they printed a whole bunch of Magic cards with Wyvern backs, which is very strange. They can sell for up to $400 a card. So you're paying $400 for a Fallen Empires card, and that doesn't seem right. So, but back on the 15th of November of 1994, everybody rushed out and they bought 1 million packs of Fallen Empires. No, they didn't, because that way that wouldn't have been a failure. And first card, Combat Medic. 0/2 creature for a 2 colorless and a white. 1 white, colorless and a white. Prevent 1 damage to any player or creature. Not bad. Next up, Farrell's Mantle. So Farrell is the zealot leader, so he's the bad guy for white. Enchantment Aura, 2 and a white. Whenever enchanted creature attacks and isn't blocked, its controller may have it deal damage equal to its powers +2 to another target creature. If that player does, the attacking creature assigns no combat damage this turn. That's not bad. Farrell's Zealot. Awesome art. I guess I just really like Melissa Benson's art a whole bunch, because I think I say that quite often. Feral Zealot, human 2/2, colorless white. Whenever Feral Zealot attacks and isn't blocked, you may have it deal 3 damage to target creature. If you do, Feral Zealot deals no combat damage this turn. Next up is Feral Light Priest, 1/3, 1 white white. 1. Add 1 white mana to your mana pool. If this ability has been activated 4 or more times this turn, sacrifice Feral Light Zilla at the beginning of the next end step, or just don't play it. Next up is Hand of Justice. It's a creature avatar it's a 2/6 for 5 colorless and a white. Tap 3 on tap white creatures you control to destroy target creature. Next up is Heroism. It's an enchantment for 2 white. Sacrifice a white creature. For each attacking red creature, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by that creature unless its controller pays 2 colorless and a red. Nope. Next up is Ication Infantry, a 1/1 for white. And then you pay 1, gains banding until end of turn, and pay 1, gains first strike until end of turn. Next up is Ication Javelineers, 1/1 white, and it enters the battlefield with the Javelin counter on it, and you tap to remove a Javelin counter, and then deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Good card in Pauper. Next up is Ication Lieutenant. It's a 1/2 human soldier for a white white, and you pay 1 and a white. Target soldier gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Next up is Ication Money Changer. This card's horrible. So it's a 0/2 for white. Ication Money Changer enters the battlefield with 3 credit counters on it. So, credit counters, okay. When Ication Money Changer enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to you, because why not? Why not, folks? At the beginning of your upkeep, put a credit counter on Ication Money Changer. Yay, so we're in for the long haul. And then sacrifice Ication Money Changer. You gain 1 life for each credit counter on Ication Money Changer. Activate this ability only during your upkeep. So you're going to get blown out. You're basically paying 1 to lightning bolt yourself with no return on investment. So, not something you're going to want to do. Okay, next up is Ication Phoenix. So it's a 2/4 soldier, human soldier for 4 colorless and a white, and it has banding. And I like the Fulgio art quite a bit, but the smiling chick over on the left just disturbs me. Next up is Ication Priest, more Drew Tucker art. Hey Drew, do you just have a whole bunch of art laying around? Yeah, you do. Can we use it? Ication Priest, 1/1 for a white, and then 1 white white. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. No tap, so that's not bad. Next up is Ication Scout, 1/1 white, 1/1 creature for 1 white mana, and 1 tap. Target creature gains first strike until end of turn. Not bad. Next up is Ication Skirmishers, so 1/1 for 3 and a white, first strike and banding. And whenever Ication Skirmishers attack, all creatures banded with it gain first strike until end of turn. That's interesting, but probably not all that great. Ication Town is a sorcery for 5 and a white. Put 4 1/1 white citizen creatures tokens onto the battlefield. This was a rare. That was a rare. Just observe the fact that that was a rare. Okay, and then Order of Liberator. This, on the other hand, was a common and is infinitely more useful. So it's a 2/1 knight for white white. Protection from black. You pay 1 white. Gains first strike until end of turn. You pay 2 white. Gets +1/+0. Next up is Deep Spawn, first blue card. So it's a Homarid. It's a 6/6. And it's 5 blue, blue, blue. So 1,000,000 mana. Trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Deep Spawn unless you put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. And then you pay blue. Deep Spawn gains Shroud until end of turn. It doesn't untap during your next untap step. Tap Deep Spawn. So I guess you do that to save it, but really you're not playing it. Next up is High Tide. High Tide is one of the better cards from the set, obviously. Spawned the whole mess of different deck archetypes and stuff because people found out they could abuse it and all that good stuff. So instant blue until end of turn. Whenever a player taps an island for mana, that player adds blue to his or her mana pool in addition to the mana the land produces. Next up is Homarid, 2/2 for 2 colorless and a blue. Homarid enters the battlefield with a tide counter on it because why not? At the beginning of your upkeep, put a tide counter on Homarid because why not? As long as there is exactly one tide counter on Homarid, it gets -1, -1. So it becomes a 1-1. As long as there is exactly 3 tide counters on Homarid, it gets +1, +1. So in 3 turns, it becomes a 3-3. And whenever there are 4 tide counters on Homarid, remove all tide counters from Homarid. That's a lot of counters to keep track of, folks. Moving on. Next up is Homarid Shaman, because why not? It's a 2-1 Homarid Shaman for 2 colorless and 2 blue. And you pay blue to tap target green creature because I hate you, green. Take that. Next up is Homarids Spawning Bed. It's an enchantment for 2 blue. Blue. Sorry, I should say blue, not 2 blue, because then you might think it costs 3 mana. And you might go, oh, 3 mana, that's not bad. It's splashable. I'm going to put it in all my decks. And you shouldn't do that. So, colorless of blue. Sacrifice a blue creature. Okay, you got me. I'm going to do that. And put X 1/1 blue Camerid, not Homarid, Camerid. Camerid, Homarid, boop, boop, boop. Creature tokens onto the battlefield where X is the sacrificed creature's converted mana cost. Or just be happy you have creatures and you don't need 1/1s instead. Next up is Homarid Warrior. It's a Homarid Warrior. It's a 3/3 for 4 and a blue. And you pay blue. Homarid Warrior gains Shroud until end of turn and doesn't untap during your next untap step. Tap Homarid Warrior. Again, I guess you're trying to save it. But why? Why? Next up is Miss Maricine. It's an enchantment aura for 2 blue. Enchant creature. Maricine enters the battlefield with 3 net counters on it, because why not? Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step if Maricine has a net counter on it. And then you pay enchanted creature's mana cost. Remove a net counter from Maricine. Any player may activate this ability, but only if he or she controls the enchanted creature. Oh, that's a weird clause. Okay, moving on. River Merfolk is a 2/1 Merfolk for blue, and then you pay blue. River Merfolk gains Mountain Walk until end of turn. I prefer saltwater Merfolk over river Merfolk. They taste better. I'm just saying the saltiness gives them a natural briny flavor that's really delightful. So next up is Sea Singer. It's a 0/1 Merfolk for colorless blue. When you control no islands, sacrifice Sea Singer. It's got that weird kind of island homie thing that happened a lot. Yo, you're my island homie. No. Back at the beginning of Magic for blue creatures. You may choose not to untap Sea Singer during your untap step. This next ability, it's going to be amazing. You tap, gain control of target creatures who controls an island for as long as you control Sea Singer and it remains tapped. That's not bad. I mean, it's a little clunky, but it's not bad. And next up is Civ Unite Priest. Those letters don't make sounds when you put them together. SBYE is not something that my mouth can make into a noise. And I can make a lot of weird words into noises. I'm a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan, and that dude liked to cram things together. And he would never have tortured his readers by doing that. I'm sorry. Okay. So it's a 1/1 Merfolk Cleric for a colorless and a blue. And it's blue tap. Target creature gains shot until end of turn. Activate this ability only during your upkeep. So you can't do it to save the creature. So not good. Tidal Flats is an enchantment for blue. For each attacking creature without flying, its controller may pay 1. If he or she doesn't, creatures you control blocking that creature gain first strike until end of turn. Next up is Tidal Influence. Blue is all about the tides. It's an enchantment for 2 colorless and a blue. Cast Tidal Influence only if no permanents named Tidal Influence are in the battlefield. So they don't want it stacking. Okay. At the beginning, Tidal Influence enters the battlefield with a tide counter on it. Because why not? Tide counters. Excellent. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a tide counter on Tidal Influence, because why not? As long as there is exactly one counter on Tidal Influence, all blue creatures get -2, -0. Because why not? As long as there are exactly 3 tide counters on Tidal Influence, all blue creatures get +2, +0. So 3 turns after you cast it, you finally get a benefit. And whenever there's 4 tide counters on Tidal Influence, remove all tide counters from it. I'm going to errata. I'm going to add a line of text. Insert Tidal Influence and all Tidal Influence into the incinerator in your backyard. If you don't have an incinerator, Google how to make one. Next up is Bodalian Knights. And this came back like the Bodalian came back in Invasion blocks, so I should know how to say that at some point. So it's a 2/2 first strike for a colorless blue. So that's not bad. Not blue, but not bad. And it can attack unless the defending player controls an island, so that island home type of effect. It actually has island home. And you can pay blue Bodalian Knights gains flying until end of turn. Island home. If you can't attack unless the controlling player controls an island, and if you control no island, you sacrifice it. So blue, poor blue with the island home. Next up is Bodalian Mage. It's a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard for 2 colorless and a blue. Blue tap, target counter target spell unless its controller plays 1. It's a 4 spike on a stick. Next up is Bodalian Soldiers. It's a 1/2 Merfolk Soldier for a colorless and a blue. Vanilla. First vanilla creature, but we're only into blue. And then the last blue card is Bodalian War Machine. Bodalian. Oh, who cares? I'm probably saying it like the onion type variety. Okay. It's a 0/4 wall for blue, or colorless blue, and it's Defender. Tap and untap Merfolk you control. Bodalian War Machine can attack this turn as though it didn't have Defender. It's a 0/4, of course. Tap and untap Merfolk you control. Bodalian War Machine gets +2/+1 until end of turn. And whenever Bodalian War Machine dies, destroy all Merfolk tap this turn to pay for its abilities. Okay. Next up, Armor Thrall, first block card. It's a 1/3 Thrall for 2 colorless and a black. Tap, sacrifice Armor Thrall, put a +1/+2 counter on target creature, because why not have a wacky counter? Next up is Basalt Thrall. Basalt Thrall. It's 1/2 Thrall for black. Tap, sacrifice Basalt Thrall, add black to your mana pool, because you just paid black. Why not put it into creature form and then get it back the turn after you cast it? Okay, next up is Breeding Pit. It's an enchantment for 3 and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Breeding Pit unless you pay black. At the beginning of your end step, put a 0/1 black Thrall creature onto the battlefield, because you need even more counters and tokens in play. Next up is Daralore. It's a 4/4 Thrall for 3 and a black. Black spells you cast cost 1 more black to cast. So that's a drawback. That guy is not horrible. I like the art. I mean, he's not what you want in like this modern day of Magic, but back then he would have been a pretty decent black creature. Next up is Bunny Preacher Devil Guy. So that's Evan Praetor. It's a 5/5 Avatar Praetor for black. First strike trample. Sounds good. Sounds real good. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a -2/2 counter on Evan Praetor. Sounds bad. Sounds really bad. And then sacrifice a creature. Remove a -2/2 counter from Evan Praetor. No. A sacrifice creature was a Thrall. Put a +1/+0 counter on Evan Praetor. Activate this ability only during your upkeep and only once each turn, and only never play that card ever, because it's just not good. Next up is Him the Turak. Hey, Him. You're one of the best cards. You can argue that it's not the best discard spell of all time, but I don't know. Like, I consider it to be the best discard spell of all time. That's my favorite of the 4 arts, the Quentin Hoover art, followed by the Liz Danford art. But I mean, look at that guy. He's all like, "Hey, let me roll the dice and pick a card at random from your hand." Okay, so and the Howling Wolf isn't horrible. So target player discards 2 cards at random. Devastating. I mean, for 2 black mana and the sorcery speed, I mean, just devastating. So I personally have had 2 of those cast on me on my opponent's first turn. They're playing. I mean, you wouldn't think that Swamp, Mox Jet, Black Lotus would lead to him to Turox and them on an empty hand. But I mean, you're pretty much on an empty hand at that point. So, and it always seems to hit the most crucial cards in your hand. That's all I'm saying. That's just result-orientated thinking, but yeah. So him to Turok would go into a Pirate Cube. It's just too strong. Next up is Initiates of Ebon Hand. It's a 1/1 cleric for black, and then 1 add black to your mana pool. If this ability has been active 4 or more times this turn, sacrifice Initiates of Ebon Hand. I don't know why there had to be so much filtering. So, next up is Mindstab Thrall. I'm going to find the art that I like better. Yeah, that's my favorite art. Whenever Mindstab Thrall attacks and isn't blocked, you may sacrifice it. If you do, defending player discards 3 cards. And it's 2/2, and it's colorless black. That's the best Thrall. It's actually really strong. Next up is Neckrite. A 2/2 Thrall for a colorless black. And whenever it's attacked and isn't blocked, you may sacrifice it. If you do, destroy target creature defending player controls. It can't be regenerated. I want to say that's the best one. Like, had all these artists do so many different versions of some of these cards, and there doesn't seem to be like a thread attaching them together. Next up is Order of Ebon Hand. I think that one's probably the best. Pro White, black for a 2/1. It's a cycle with the Order of the Levitor. Black Order of the Ebon Hand gains first strike, and black it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. This is one of the cards that actually saw competitive play from Fallen Empires. That and Hem to Turok in the same deck, Necro, because it dodged Swords to Plowshares. So, okay, next up is Soul Exchange, black for a sorcery. As an additional cost to Soul Exchange, exile a creature you control, because why not? Return a target card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +2/+2 counter on that creature if the exile card was a Thrall. And it would be a Thrall. You would exile a Thrall. Next up is Thrall Champion. So it's a Thrall. It's a 2/2. It's 4 in black. Thrall creatures get +1/+1. And then tap. You can control a target Thrall for as long as you control Thrall Champion. So you can just take all of your opponent's Thralls. Next up is Thrall Retainer. It's an enchantment aura for black. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. And sacrifice Thrall Retainer or regenerate enchanted creature. That's effective but not good. Next up is Thrall Wizard. So Thrall Wizard is a 1/1 for 2 colorless and a black. 1 black, counter target black spell unless that spell's controller plays a black or 3. That's one of the clearer cards for the color versus itself theme. I guess Tidal Influence was pretty strong on that aspect, but it's not as straightforward. Next up is Turok's Chant. So it's an enchantment for 1 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Turok's Chant unless you pay black. Whenever a player puts a force onto the battlefield, Turok's Chant deals 3 damage to that player, unless he or she puts a -1/-1 counter on a creature he or she controls, or they're just going to blow up your Turok's Chant at the end of your turn. So And the last green or last black card is Turok's Gate. So it's an enchantment or 1/black enchant land you control. Sacrifice a Thrall, put 3 time counters on Turok's Gate. Oh, this is getting good. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter from Turok's Gate. If there are no time counters on Turok's Gate, sacrifice it. No! No, I need my time counters. Tap enchanted land. Attacking creatures you control get +2, -1 until end of turn. Activate this ability only if enchanted land is untapped. Moving on. Brasscall Orcs. It's a 3/2 for 2 and a red, and Brasscall Orcs can't block creatures with power 2 or greater. Next up is Dwarven Armorer. It's a 0/2 dwarf for red, and then red tap, discard a card, put a +0/+1 counter or a +1/+0 counter on target creature. Next up is Dwarven Catapult. Instant X red. Dwarven Catapult deals X damage divided evenly, rounded down among all creatures target opponent controls. Next up is Dwarven Lieutenant. Red for a 1/2 dwarf. 1 red. Target dwarf gets +1/+0 until end of turn. See, that's probably the best Dwarven card we've talked about so far because this is super straightforward. Next up is Dwarven Soldier. I feel like there's a better art. Oh, I'm wrong. There's not a better art. All 3 of them are horrible. So let's look at this one. Whenever it's a 2/1 dwarf for 1 and a red, whenever Dwarven Soldier blocks or becomes blocked by 1 or more orc, Dwarven Soldier gets +0/+2 until end of turn because we hate you orcs. Next up is Goblin Surgeon. It's a 0/2 Goblin Shaman for red, and sacrifice a goblin, regenerate target creature. That's flavorful for goblins. Next up is Goblin Flotilla. So 2/2 for 2 and a red, Island Walk. At the beginning of each upkeep, unless you pay red, whenever Goblin Flotilla blocks or becomes blocked by a creature this combat, that creature gains first strike because we hate you goblins. Next up is Goblin Grenade. Red sorcery. As an additional cost to a goblin, sacrifice a goblin. As an additional cost to Goblin Grenade, sacrifice a goblin. Goblin Grenade deals 5 damage to target creature or player. I want to say there's one really funny one, and I think it's this one. I don't suppose we could teach them to throw the cursed things. So, good times. Next up is Goblin Kites, and it's an enchantment for 1 red. Red, target creature you control with toughness 2 or less gains flying until end of turn. Flip a coin at the beginning of your next end step. If you lose the flip, sacrifice that creature. Flavorful, not good, because it flies and then it might crash, and goblins, we hate you. Okay, next up is Goblin War Drums. It's an enchantment for 2 and a red. Each creature you control can't be blocked except for by 2 or more creatures. So I guess that would now say something like each creature you control gains menace. Next up is Goblin Warrens. Enchantment, 2 and a red, 2 and a red. Sacrifice 2 goblins, put 3 1 red goblin token creatures onto the battlefield. So I guess it ekes you out something, but for 6 mana, that's just a lot. And 2 creatures, of course. Next up is Orcish Captain, and 1/1 Orc Warrior for red. 1, flip a coin. Off to a good start. If you win the flip, target orc gets +2/+0 until end of turn. If you lose the flip, it gets -0, -2 until end of turn. Next up is Orcish Spy. It's a 1/1 red rogue orc. Tap, look at the top 3 cards of target player's library. Next up is Orcish Veteran. It's a 2/2 for 2 and a red. Orcish Veterans can't block white creatures or with power 2 or greater. And red, Orcish Veteran gains first strike until end of turn. That's pretty. Let's see what the Melissa Benson art looks like. Or maybe not. Not her strongest. It is a really junky card, though. Next up is Org. 6/6 for 3 red, or 3 colorless and 2 red. Trample. Or you can't block if defending player controls an untapped creature with power 3 or greater. Or you can't block creatures with power 3 or greater. It's bigger than it thinks. Not good. Next up is Rating. Oh, and that was a rare. It's a rare in 5th edition, and it was time shifted in Time Spiral. So Wizards has tortured people with that card 3 different times. Next up is Raiding Party. It's an enchantment for 2 colorless and a red. This is the last red card. Raiding Party can't be the target of white spells or abilities from white sources. And sacrifice an orc. Each player may tap any number of untapped white creatures he or she controls. For each creature tapped this way, that player chooses up to 2 planes to destroy all planes that weren't chosen this way by any player. Clunky. Okay, next up is Elven Fortress. Enchantment for 1 green, and then 1 colorless and green. Target blocking creature gets +0/+1 until end of turn. Next up is Elvish Farmer. It's a 0/2 elf for 1 and a green. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a spore counter on Elvish Farmer, because why not? Remove 3 spore counters from Elvish Farmer, put a 1/1 Saproling creature token onto the battlefield, and sacrifice a Saproling. You gain 2 life. Elvish Hunter is next. It's a 1/1 Elf Archer for 1 and a green. That elf is not being polite because he's on the Saproling side. Elvish Archer, 1/1 Elf Archer. Elvish Hunter. Sorry, I'm going to start over. Bear with me. Elvish Hunter is a 1/1 Elf Archer for 1 and a green, and it has 1 green tap. Target creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap. That's not bad. Next up is Elvish Scout, a 1/1 and green, 1/1 creature for an Elf Scout at a green. Green and tap, untap target attacking creature you control. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by it this turn. Next up is Feral Thallid. It's a 6/3 fungus for 3 green. Okay. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a spore counter on Feral Thallid and remove 3 spore counters from Feral Thallid. Regenerate Feral Thallid. So a million turns later, you get to regenerate it once. Next up, Fungal Bloom. Enchantment green. Put a spore counter on target fungus. Fungus loves spore counters. They just love them. Next up is Night Soil, green. 1. Exile 2 creature cards from a single graveyard. Put a 1/1 green Saproling token onto the battlefield. Night Soil is poop. Okay. Next up is Spore Cloud. No, literally, that's Night Soil is poop. Not that card, but that's what Night Soil means. It means poop, like a poop pile with lots of poop in it. Okay. Next up is Spore Cloud. It's an instant, 1 green. Tap all blocking creatures. Prevent all combat damage that we be dealt this turn. Each attacking creature and each blocking creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. That was a 3 mana. That could see play on like Pauper Turbo Fog, but it is 3 mana, so it's probably just a little too expensive. You'd rather just be moments piecing and stuff. Ooh. Water. Good for my throat. Okay. Next up is Spore Flower. It's a 0/1 fungus for green. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a spore counter on Spore Flower. Remove 3 spore counters from Spore Flower. Prevent all combat damage will be dealt this turn. I love that art. It's super pretty. Okay. Thallid Shooter. Okay. 1/1 green, and then it has the spore counter. Remove spore counters to put a 1/1 green Saproling into play. Thallid Devourer has the same. It's green for 1 colorless green, or it's 2/2 fungus creature for 1 green. At the beginning of your upkeep, spore counter. Remove 3 spore counters. Put a Saproling into play, and then sacrifice a Saproling. It gets +1/+2 until end of turn. That's a lot of steps to get a 3/4 creature. Just a lot. Next up is Thelon's Chance, an enchantment for 1 green green. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Thelon's Chant unless you pay green. Whenever a player plays a swamp onto the battlefield, Thelon's Chant deals 3 damage to that player unless he or she puts a -1/-1 counter onto a creature he or she controls. So it's the cycle with the other green one. Thelon's Curse is an enchantment for green green. Blue creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may choose to untap any number of blue creatures he or she controls and pay blue for each creature chosen this way. If a player does tap those creatures, you're just going to counterspell that stupid thing and never have to worry about it. Next up is Thelon Knight Druid. Human Cleric Druid, 1/1, 2 and a green, and then 1 and a green tap, sacrifice a creature, forest you control, become 2/3 creatures until end of turn. They're still land, so that's not bad. Clunky, but not bad. Thelon Knight Monk is a insect monk cleric for 1/2, and then 2 green green. Tap, sacrifice a green creature, target land becomes a forest. This effect lasts indefinitely. Okay. Thorn Thallid has it's a 2/2 for 1 green green, has the spore counter, but you remove the 3 spore counters from Thorn Thallid and it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Just take that, we hate you. And that was the last screen card. Over to artifacts, and there are quite a few artifacts. None of them are particularly strong. There is the artifact boom cycle. That mimics the original boon cycle from alpha, beta, and unlimited, but they're super expensive. And this is the first one, Aeoliophile. So it's 2 to cast, 1 tap, sacrifice Aeoliophile. Aeoliophile deals 2 damage to target creature or player. So basically, for 3 mana, you get Lightning Bolt -1. And it was a rare. It's come back as an uncommon, or a common in Modern Masters Edition 2. So Balm of Restoration is Healing Salve. So 2 to cast, 1 tap, sacrifice Balm of Restoration, choose 1, you gain 2 life, or prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn. A rare. Next up is Conchhorn. 2, 1 tap, sacrifice Conchhorn, draw 2 cards, then put a card from your hand on top of your library, because you can't have Ancestral Recall, because we hate you. Next up is Delphi's Cone. It's an artifact for 0. Tap, sacrifice Delphi's Cone. This turn, when target creature you control attacks and isn't blocked, you may gain life equal to its power. If you do, it assigns no combat damage this turn. If you play that card, you're probably going to lose. Next up is Delphi's Cube. 1 to cast, 2 tap. This turn, when target creature you control is attacked and isn't blocked, it assigns no combat damage this turn. And if you put a cube counter in Delphi's Cube, this next line of text, it better be amazing. 2. Remove a cube counter from Delphi's Cube. Regenerate target creature. Not amazing. Awesome art. Bad card. Next up is Draconian Silex. So it's an artifact for 3 mana, 2 tap, discard a card at random, regenerate target creature. At random, makes that card unplayable. Next up is Elven Lyre. 2 to cast, 1 tap, sacrifice Elven Lyre, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, so that's the Giant Growth. Next up is Implements of Sacrifice. 2, 1 and tap. Sacrifice Implements of Sacrifice. That's a lot of sacrifice. That's a lot of sacrifice words. Add 2 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool, so that's Black Lotus. Next up is Ring of Renewal. 5 tap, discard a card at random, then draw 2 cards. So 6 mana, 10 mana, and a card to draw 2 cards. No, thank you. Next up is Spirit Shield. 3 to cast. You may choose not to untap Spirit Shield during your untap step. 2 tap. Target creature gets +0/+2 for as long as Spirit Shield remains tapped. So, like a really early form of equipment. And then Zillion Sword, last artifact. You may choose not to untap Zillion Sword during your untap step. And 3 tap, target creature gets +2/+0 for as long as Zillion Sword remains tapped. So, 6 mana to Bone Split. No, thank you. Alright, Bottomless Vault. Now, this is part of a cycle, the storage land cycle. So, when I hit these, I'll just say that there's storage lands for what color. Bottomless Vault is a storage land for black. So, it enters the battlefield tapped. You may choose not to untap Bottomless Vault during your untap step. And during the upkeep of Bottomless Vault is tapped, put a storage counter on it. And then you can tap any number of storage tap to remove any number of storage counters from Bottomless Vault. Add a black to your mana pool for each storage counter removed this way. Super clunky, and it's a rare, and it's super clunky. Dwarven Hold is the red storage land. Dwarven Ruins is a sacrifice land, and this is the other land cycle. So again, it enters the battlefield tapped. And you can tap to add red to your mana pool. So it just straight up gives you red. And then you can tap Sacrifice Dwarven Ruins to add red to your mana pool. So that's how all of those worked. Evan Stronghold is the black version. Havenwood Battleground is the green version. Hollow Trees is the green storage land. Vacation Store is the white storage land. Rainbow Bell is an oddball. So Rainbow Bell is tap. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Excellent. City of Brass with no downside. An opponent gains control of Rainbow Bell at the beginning of the next end step. Horrible, but I've seen that it gets played in oddball formats like Commander. So, Ruins of Truckar is the white storage land. Sand Silos is the blue, or Ruins of Truckar is the white sacrifice land. Sand Silos is the blue storage land, and Sibylline Temple is the blue sacrifice land. And with that, I never have to think about Fallen Empires again. And that's a happy day. That's a happy day for everybody, folks. The only Fallen Empires card that I would personally put into a Pirate Cube would be Hymn of the Turak. I'm surprised I found one. So, but that's it. Next up will be another combo show. It will be 4th edition and Ice Age. Some fun bits of information about 4th edition, and which is not a small set. And then of course Ice Age, which was the next big set, is not a small set either, but it'll be a nice combo show. But that's it. Thank you guys for listening to me rant about considered to be one of the worst sets in Magic history. Of course, as always, question, comments, concern, leave them in the comments below. And I want to thank you all so much for listening. Have a wonderful day.